Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English channel. In our today's video, we are going to understand about the concept of inequality, right? Now inequality, it basically means the differences among sections of population in their income, wealth as well as consumption. So in that regard, how is inequality calculated in India? What are the recent trends related to inequality? That we are going to understand in our today's discussion. But the reason is, why are we talking about inequality? Well, let me tell you that particular reason. Well, recently, the government of India cited a data by the World Bank based from its report known as Poverty and Equity Index. Now, this report of World Bank, it states that India's Gini Coefficient, it stood at 25.5 in the year 22-23. Do not worry if you don't understand what is Gini Coefficient. I will tell you that in our today's discussion, right? So, based on this figures by the World Bank, the government of India said that India is now world's fourth most equal country after countries like Slovak Republic, Slovenia and Belarus. So this is one fact that we are going to talk about. But on another hand, you may have heard about the facts that India's 1% of population, the top 1%, it actually controls nation's 40% of wealth. So on one hand, you'll think that India is a very unequal country. But on the other hand, World Bank, which is a reputable international organization, it is telling you that India is fourth most equal country. So based on this distinct facts, what do you think is correct? Well, let me tell you, both of these facts are correct. But the way how we have calculated inequality, it may differ from one organization to another organization. So that we are going to understand in our today's discussion. Now, based on this report by the World Bank, the government of India says that our stand on reducing inequality stands vindicated. And this is because of many reasons. Because in the past few years, you'll realize that the government of India is increasing its welfare spending, be it providing health insurance through Ayushman Bharat or providing free food through Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. All of these highlights that the burden on poor people is going to reduce day by day, and it has actually happened. So in that regard, how or is inequality existing in India? That will be the subject of our today's discussion. Okay. Now, first, let us understand how are inequality calculated in India. If you want to download the notes, these will be available on the Telegram channel known as ATS Live. So after this session ends, please go to this Telegram channel ATS Live. Finding it is very easy. Just open your Telegram app. On the top right hand corner, there's a search bar. Click on it and write ATS Live, you'll find the channel. But if you still have problems in locating it, this is the QR code that you need to scan. You'll find the channel, subscribe it if you still haven't, and download the notes. So we were talking about inequality, and inequality is measured through various different criteria, the most important of which is Lorenz curve. Now this is the curve that you can see on the right hand part of my screen. And as you can realize, this is a graph that puts on its y-axis the share of income, wealth or consumption with respect to share of people in the population. And this straight line here, it highlights the line of perfect inequality, or perfect equality. So it means that if 50% of nation's population, if it controls 50% of the wealth, then it means that India, or any country for that matter for which we are plotting the Lorenz curve, it would mean the line of perfect equality, right? So this straight line highlights a society is equal. But we understand in reality, no society is perfectly equal. So how do we estimate the amount of inequality? Well, this is the curved line that will help you estimate it. So as the line curves, the more it is the inequality. And as you can understand, this highlights that a nation is unequal in its wealth. Similarly, if the curve or if the line curves further, you'll correctly estimate that the amount of inequality is increasing. So this is perfect equality, and as the line curves, inequality increases. Understood? So curves means increase in inequality. This you have to remember, and this is what Lorenz curve is. I've put here income earned, you can put here wealth, you can put here consumption. All of this will highlight the differences in equality in the different section of population. So here means if 20% of the nation's wealth is concentrated in 20% of the population, this means a perfect equality. So this is the straight line that highlights equality, and as we go downwards, or as the line goes more curved, it increases the amount of inequality, and this is what Lorenz curve is. Now, another concept is used known as Gini coefficient, which I told you in the context. Now, what is Gini coefficient? Gini coefficient is basically the differences in this area known as A with the sum total of area below this straight line of inequality, right? So, what is the area? This includes area A plus B, and Gini coefficient is the differences in this curve A divided by A plus B. So this is what gives you Gini coefficient. And as you can understand, the value of A, as it increases, the value of Gini coefficient increases. And more is this red line, the more will be the inequality in that particular country. Understood? So this is what Gini coefficient shows. If this line is entirely, this curves become prominent, and this A becomes this entire curved line, this means Gini is equal to 1. And when Gini is equal to 1, that means a perfect unequal society. Whereas if this Gini becomes 0, which means A reduces to 0, this means the line of perfect inequality. So Gini varies from 0 to 1. 0 means perfect equality, 1 means perfect inequality, and theoretically value of every country remains between this figure. Understood? Right. So this is what Gini coefficient is. Understood? From Lorenz curve, we have derived Gini coefficient, and basically what you need to understand, the more the curved the line is, the more will be the inequality, right? So this is the basic concept of inequality that you needed to understand. Now, based on India's figure, or based on what World Bank was saying about us, that we are world's fourth most equal country, you have to pay close attention to the facts. Because the Gini coefficient that was quoted there, it actually was based on household consumption data, not on the data of households' income or households' wealth. And there's a prominent differences between how we calculate inequality based on consumption and income as well as wealth. Because consumption equality, structurally, it has been seen that it is lower than the inequality that exists in income or wealth. And it is quite simple to understand. Suppose if the household income is rupees 500 every day, and to meet its food and security requirement, that household requires to spend how much money every day? That is 300 rupees every day. And you can safely assume if a household is earning 500 rupees every day or 15,000 rupees every month, that will be a poor household. And majority of their income, that is 60% of their total daily income, it is spent on items like food, security, etc. Right? So poor people, they tend to spend a lot more as a percentage of their total income on meeting their day-to-day requirements. But now let us assume if the household is earning 5,000 rupees every day, which is a decent amount of money, that will put you in a middle class category, right? Now out of that 5,000 rupees, suppose obviously if a person belongs to middle class, he will spend more on items like food, like he'll buy a better rice, he'll buy a better wheat, he'll buy good vegetables. So for that household, the daily spending on food and security requirements must be 500 rupees. So this means that this household is spending just 10% of their daily income on meeting their day-to-day requirements. So as you can understand, as the family becomes more prosperous, household becomes more prosperous, the lesser amount of consumption money that they will be spending on their food items. So that is why understanding consumption inequality, structurally it happens to be lower than the income of wealth or income inequality. And this is because of many reasons, because as rise income, or as your income rises, it leads to richer people spending more on their savings rather than on consumption requirements, right? So suppose if this household is spending 500 rupees on their daily requirements, they are left out with 4,500 rupees every day that they can spend or they can save. On the other hand, this poor household is only able to save how much rupees every day? 200 rupees. Now see the differences, right? So their saving differences is quite prominent as compared to the differences in the spending. So this highlights, as you become more prosperous or as your income increases, the lesser percentage of money of your income you'll spend on your day-to-day requirements, and more amount of money you will try to save every day. Similarly, poor people, they have very limited capacity to save, as you can understand from this example, right? Therefore, a fall in consumption inequality does not necessarily imply that your income or wealth inequality is increasing or reducing. Understood? So this is one of the problems associated with the data. Another problem is the surveys that assume your consumption expenditure, like household consumption expenditure survey. They often miss out on taking data from the top 1% of the India's population. First of all, rich people, they refuse to participate in more of these surveys, and also the sampling, because these surveys, they do not ask data from each and every citizen of India. They take a randomized sample. So what is the probability that a billionaire would fall into that sample? Very low, right? And even if a billionaire falls into that sample, what do you think will be the likelihood that the billionaire will answer your question? Not very much, right? So these are the differences that shows there are certain shortcomings when you come to assuming these data. Therefore, consumption survey, it underestimates the true level of inequality, and therefore most countries, they are basing their Gini coefficient on income based data, which is not available in India. In India, the only income based data that the government has is your taxation return files, right? But how much do you think, how many people actually file their taxation returns every year? About 6 crore people. And what is India's population? 140 crores. Understood the difference? And even many people who are earning a lot more, they tend to underestimate their income so that their tax burden is less, particularly people who are employed in business class or in another organized sector or even agricultural sector, right? So these are the problems that are associated with estimating inequality in India. We can't, or we don't have the adequate amount of income related data. We are more relying on consumption based data, and as I have already highlighted, the consumption inequality tends to be quite lower than the inequality in terms of income and wealth, right? So these are the challenges that the government is facing. Now, what will be the consequences if the government misinterprets inequality data? First of all, the policy response that the government is expected to do after assuming inequality would not be very correct. Government will under prioritize how much amount of people require redistribution efforts from the government, and similarly their welfare and taxation strategy would also tend to be misguided, because what is the purpose of government's direct taxation strategy? It is a progressive form of taxation, which means the more you earn, the more amount of income tax you're expected to pay. Similarly, the amount of welfare expenditure government does, it's usually made towards the people from lower economic background, right? So if government would be spending less on their welfare efforts, the amount of inequality automatically will increase in future, right? Similarly, there are many economic risks. First of all, rising inequality can harm the long-term growth of the country, because once the economy leads to more inequality, the amount of people employed in the sector, their disposable incomes will reduce, and ultimately it will reduce the demands of goods and services, and it might also lead to erosion of social trust as well as leading to political instability. Similarly, it may also intensify social unrest and widen opportunity gaps. First of all, if the nation remains unequal, it may automatically not lead to prosperous society, because people will be agitated, people will conduct protest, and it will lead to overall political instability, as we have seen in many countries, right? And it will also widen opportunity gaps, because if persons are not actually being able to earn very much, the probability of their income being spent on health, education would automatically reduce, right? So these are the consequences that happens if you don't estimate inequality properly. Now, the best part is how you can improve the calculation of inequality. Now, many studies have highlighted that you need to integrate such consumption surveys also with the income tax records, because first, consumption survey will highlight you how much people are consuming, and income tax records will highlight how much people are earning. And based on these data, you can actually improve your income Gini coefficient, and it will show that top 10% medium earning, they are earning actually 13% higher than the bottom 10%, which actually highlights inequality exists in India. Similarly, top 1% of the India's household, they hold nearly 40% of India's national wealth. So you can utilize these data in your mains answer writing. That is also the utility. Alternative measures are also or can also be employed by government, such as using PAMA ratio. What is PAMA ratio? It is the ratio that highlights the differences between top 10% of the population with bottom 40% of the population, or even top 1% economically wealth share, which will be more reflective of the total inequality in India. So let us understand what is a PAMA ratio. Now, PAMA ratio, it actually is the ratio that shows the share of all income received by top 10% of the people who have highest disposable income in the country, and you have to divide that ratio with the shares of all income cornered by bottom 40% of the people who have lowest disposable income. So this will actually show you the true extent of inequality, and it measures inequality between extremes of Indian society, that is household who are at the top and household who are at the bottom. So you'll realize the differences between these two. So this is the PAMA ratio I was talking about. I hope I've made you understand inequality in some time. If you have still any doubt, please do let me know in the comment section what do you feel about it. Now we are starting off with a parallel batch for foundation courses, especially for the students who are going to attend their exam next year. Now you need to understand only 10 months amount of time is remaining. So this is practically your last chance to get yourself enrolled in a batch, and getting yourself enrolled in a batch will help you provide right guidance, right strategy, right content, as well as right mentorship, so that you are able to qualify your prelims examination. And the most surprising aspect about these courses is that the students belonging to Diamond batch, if you clear your prelims next year, we will refund your entire course fees, right? So you can still take admissions to these batch, but while taking admissions, please pay close attention. You have to use the code ATS Live, because using this code ATS Live will help you save 7,000 rupees, and your ultimate course fees will be 27,999 for the Diamond batches. There are also other batches available, Gold and Platinum. Choose accordingly, but my recommendation to you would be the Diamond batch, because it provides you many benefits that the other batches don't. Especially the scholarship, that if you clear prelims, your entire course fees will be refunded. Understood? Now let's deal with two practice questions that I've curated. I want each and every one of you to answer these practice questions in your comment section. First, consider the following statements. The Gini coefficient, it measures inequality on a scale from 0 to 1, with 1 representing perfect equality. Second statement, in India, the inequality in asset ownership is greater than the inequality in consumption. What do you think is the right answer? Please do let me know in the comment section. And another question is a two-statement questions. First statement states regional disparities in India persist despite various government initiatives aimed at reducing inequalities. Second statement, uneven distribution of natural resources, differences in infrastructure, and variation in governance quality have contributed to regional imbalances in India. What do you feel about these two statements? Are these two correct? Some of them are incorrect. What do you feel about it? Please also let me know in the comment section, okay? And again, if you want to download the notes, these will be available on the Telegram channel ATS Live. So subscribe it if you still haven't, and download the notes. We'll see each other again. Please have a very good day.